Hello, yay!
All my friends are simps.
Welcome to my live stream. Yeah, I was going to be answering your questions as they came in, but Aaron?
Obviously, I've seen a lot of paranormal activity in my time.
Aaron convinced me to come back to investigate the ghost.
This alleged ghost that exists in this flat.
It was
Okay?
you. It was you.
No! You're losing it, man.
Oh my god! I just need help.
Who's to say what's real, what's not?
Welcome to All My Friends Are Synths. This is my podcast where I attempt to pretend I know people in real life. And today I have my old friend, school colleague, I guess you would say.
School. Colleagues at school.
Yeah, school colleague. Maybe we shouldn't talk about that. But my old friend, Graham Action Man Hughes, who is an independent film director, I guess you say.
Yeah.
What's the difference between an independent film director and just a film director, though?
I mean, I think that traditionally it's like whether you work for a studio,
Oh yeah, so you're independent. What if you don't work for anybody?
then you're. It's getting into semantics of
Homeless?
art.
Yeah. Anyway, you are a film director. Thank you for coming here, drinking questionable drinks in this studio. I should say that there's people next door, and you will no doubt hear cheering, abuse,
It's
gymnastics.
our live studio audience.
Yeah, live studio audience. There's multiple people behind the cameras. But yeah, thanks for coming and speaking to me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Drinking.
Yeah.
I've not seen you in a while.
Yeah, it's always a yes to an invite with drink.
With drink, yes. This by the way is awful. Although I should try and get sponsorship.
Yeah, when Audible and Squarespace.
Yeah, come knocking.
Yeah, but no, Dragon Soup is that's a sponsor.
Yeah, I can't even accept sponsorship from Squarespace because of my day job.
Oh,
So yeah. Or Wix, especially Wix. I guess I shouldn't even speak about this, but yeah.
Would they sponsor you though? Your day job?
No.
Who shall not be
definitely
named, I assume?
Yeah, I mean, oh, fuck it. But you are a director,
Yes.
filmmaker, director. You have had, I guess I should explain. You've done 2 feature films, is that
Three.
right? 3?
Yeah.
Fucking hell. One of which
Did you forget the first one that you were in?
I've tried to forget lots of things. But that was a BAFTA award winning.
BAFTA winning. Second one was BAFTA nominee. And then the third one was a BIFA longlisted.
What's BAFTA?
The British Independent Film Awards. They're like, so the hierarchy, I think the unofficial hierarchy is Scottish BAFTAs, which I have, then BIFA, and then real BAFTAs.
So you're working your way up.
Yeah, it's
Working
like
your way up.
slowly one at a time. Get a real BAFTA one of these days.
And top of the list is my podcast, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Aye,
Yeah.
yeah, I have to be. Aye, just to make sure that's
Yeah.
in there.
No one from Scottish BAFTA watches this because you probably won't,
Yeah.
won't enjoy that
Won't take that
hierarchy.
kindly. I enjoy the hierarchy. So 3 of them. What was the last one that you did?
So the last one was Death of a Vlogger, which was a found footage horror about internet addiction, social media fame, and fake news.
Sounding all very poignant for my... People are addicted to my vlog.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get messages.
It's because you're wonderful guests, obviously.
Oh yeah, the wonderful guest. It's all about the wonderful guest. So I want to ask you some technical things about making stuff, because I think that is like interesting, but also, well, the other way around. I want to ask you about film stuff, but I also want to know about making them, because I think it's a bit of a mystery to anybody. So I guess before I ask you about the stuff you've done, I guess the real question is, how the fuck do you make a film?
So,
Which is a big question.
yeah, do you want the the traditional route for a funded film, or how do you make a no budget film? Because they're very different.
I guess the latter, because to me, I guess you would have an idea, right? I guess I don't want to answer for you. You're on the podcast, but like you would have an idea, but how the fuck? Like I make terrible videos online,
Yeah.
and even editing a fucking 20-minute video is hell on earth. So I just have no concept of the process of shooting like an hour and a half, 2 hours of like story, and like how the fuck do you cut it, and like all of that thing, like how does that even, I wouldn't even know where to begin.
Yeah. Well, it's right. So it's a big question, obviously, for a start, but try to like pare it all down to bare bones. Yeah, ideas first. I guess I'll speak to what I do, and like obviously there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat or whatever the phrase is. But for me, starts with an idea, and if I'm excited by it, that's always like good news.
Half the battle.
Exactly, I think because you need to be excited. It needs to be an idea that you can spend the next 2 years of your life with. So
it's bad enough I do like a video and it's done in a day, and like I get bored of it within a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like 2 years is like that's like a conservative estimate. But like if you're forcing something into being, like if you're doing no budget, then 2 years is probably about right, because you don't have the gatekeepers in that. You know, you're at the mercy of all the other shit, but not the gatekeepers at least. But yeah, idea comes. Usually I'll let that kind of percolate for a few weeks or maybe months or maybe years, like depends what else I've got on the go. But there gets like a tipping point where the idea, I've been thinking about it long enough and there's enough there that then can start writing it, and that would be the next step. So I was working on a project yesterday, and I'm very like plot focused compared to other people. Like some people like character focused or story focused, but I like plot and I like structure. So my next step with this idea that I'd had was to try and get a structure, just like bullet points down of like scenes, and see if the character's journey worked, see how long like it could be, like how long it would play out, because if it was too short it's not a feature, and if it's too long then there's too much story.
What's the difference between plot and story?
So plot is events, specifically like events, how they unfold, and story is like in between plot and character.
Right, okay.
So try to think of a good example, but like the plot of The Shawshank Redemption is a guy escaping from prison.
Oh, like the big conceptual idea, versus the...
But the story is about hope, and it's about the friendship of these two men, and that. But the plot is kind of like more the events, and
I had no concept that was even...
there's a discrepancy between the two. So yeah, and then once basically the writing process can take years, but it's starts with the idea. So then it's for me it's like bullet pointing the scenes. I might write a treatment, which is basically like a kind of prose version, maybe anywhere between like 5 to 10 pages. But I tend to skip that and go straight to script, and then redraft the script. And once that's finished, then assembling crew, assembling cast. If it's a no-budget film, obviously the finance doesn't come into it, but do tend to need a bit of money, like a couple of grand even, at least, just to pay people's travel or buy props or rent equipment or studios or whatever space. And then God, it's just like it's a long process, but that's the start of it anyway.
So in terms of the editing side, because I guess I think I would expect most people that end up watching this will be, well, maybe not, I have no fucking idea really, but I'm thinking of me in terms of like, for me the actual editing part, like I specifically have no concept of how you take what I assume must be like almost terabytes or like definitely hundreds of gig worth of footage, especially now with 4K.
Yeah.
And like, how do you even begin to assemble that in a way that's like because you'll have multiple takes, right, of each scene, and like
it's It's not as complicated as it sounds. So, like, for the last feature, for instance, I think I had 1 terabyte of footage in total. Or rather, 1 terabyte of footage it was. And I guess that was a weird example because usually there was only one angle because it was like a found footage film. There wasn't, what you call coverage, where you have multiple angles, like close-ups. And yeah, exactly. There's generally one take, or not one take, sorry, one shot, multiple takes of that one shot, but then you're just picking the best one as opposed to doing any sort of complex editing, and there were other kind of sequences and scenes that were shot in a more traditional way. But
so do you do it in one big thing, like one big timeline, or do you do like
yeah. So chuck it all in one timeline, and like again, there's so many different ways to do it. Depends on your preference, but and it depends how the film's shot. Like even traditional narrative films, you might get a like directors love that wanky kind of long take of like the tracking shot where it'll be following a character, and it's like, well, when it comes to editing, you just pick the best one, and that's it. But when it's more traditional like this, when you've got like your master, your like 2-shot, and then your close-ups, it's usually that's when it will be story driven, and obviously you can do it well or you can do it poorly, but the obvious thing is like be on the character that's talking, but it depends on what the story is and whether it's more important we see the reaction of the person that's been spoken to, or but the story always drives the editing, or it should.
I'm just looking at that GoPro as I'm talking, and I can see the red lights going. So I'm curious, as I stand up to fix this GoPro, tell me about your worst fuck up.
I can't remember if you were in this one.
If I was in it, it was definitely a fuck up.
Were you when we did the 12 Angry Men?
Yes.
Were you in that?
Yeah, I was there.
You were there. Oh, you were taking photos, weren't you? I remember. Yeah, some of those photos were really nice.
Very skilled photographer.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a competition that Empire used to run, and it was doing a remake of a film in 60 seconds. And 12 Angry Men is one of my favourite films, so we did that. And
was that the 60-second thing?
Yeah.
There you go.
So we wrote that as like a 60-second version of 12 Angry Men, and we shot it in the Kirky Miners Club.
Yes, famous from Don't Tell a Bride.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as seen on TV.
Yeah.
And yeah, my dad knew someone there, and he'd organised getting us in, and it was this whole thing. It was obviously 12 actors, which was quite a lot of people, and we shot it. It took a night, got home, and the tape was blank. To this day, I have no idea what happened. The timer was running up, so it was showing that it was recording. But when I got it home, and I was back in those days when it was tape, you have to do real time encoding. So instead of just dragging the file.
Wait, that was in tape?
Yeah.
Fuck off.
Yeah,
that wasn't even that long ago.
I know. HDV. So
Christ.
It was like the last kind of prosumer style tape that it was HD, 720 I think, but it was mini DV tape, and I got it home, rewound to the start, plugged the camera in, and was ready to record it on the computer, and it was just black.
Oh yeah, because you would have to import it in real time as well.
Yeah.
Christ.
Yeah. So.
Did you ever redo that?
Yeah, the next night.
Okay, that's fine, because I was I'm sure I've seen that.
Yeah, we did make it, but that was having to text everyone that was there that night and be like, he's free tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, even doing something like this, I thought this would be straightforward. Oh fuck it, we've got the cameras, and I'm obsessively checking that light now.
Yeah.
And I forgot to turn the light on my camera, so I have no idea whether it's recording or not. But it's these kinds of things. I'm sure it is, but it's these kinds of things that make you feel alive. I think. But I did a podcast.
I mean, there's probably like less stressful ways to feel alive.
Well, I think I have to you have to let go, and I guess that's like another interesting thing we had kind of talked about a bit earlier when we were definitely not in the pub drinking before. But with YouTube and stuff, I've kind of embraced failure.
Yeah.
In fact, all of my life I've embraced failure. But, I mean, I'm in a band, but especially with YouTube, I think that people are really, they like to be very produced and try and make it like a TV show and stuff. But for me, I prefer just to fuck it, roll with it. Like, I would rather do more things that are imperfect than spend weeks and weeks getting something really perfect.
Yeah.
And I think for me that's what's been really interesting, because it's meant I've done more stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm less precious about it. But I guess you don't have that luxury when you're doing
yes and no. And I read this amazing I guess metaphor, but this experiment that this teacher ran where I can't remember the medium, but it was like, say, pottery or something like that. It was an art medium, and he had his class split into two, and one side of the class was to make 100 pots, regardless of quality, just make 100 pots, and the other side was to make one pot and it had to be perfect. And then by the end of the term or whatever, the class, the side that brought their perfect pot was shitter than the class, the side that had done the 100. Their 100th pot was way better than that one. So it's embracing imperfections and embracing just doing the work,
the process.
Yeah.
And
there was a good example of when I made Death of a Vlogger, my last feature. I made it in a really weird way. So usually on a standard film shoot, and every most of the films I've worked on, you have a set time for production or for shooting, of a week or a month or whatever, and you just shoot every day, and then by the end of that week or month or whatever, you've got all your stock. But with Death of a Vlogger, I shot it kind of iteratively, because it was I was shooting on my phone and I was the main character, and it was set in my flat. It's the realities of no budget filmmaking. It meant that I could shoot whenever I wanted or not shoot whenever I wanted. It took a lot of stress off of it, and I could be coming home from work and being I feel like shooting tonight, so do a couple of scenes, and that meant that it could be made iteratively along the way and redone or whatever. So one of the earliest scenes, when I hadn't even finished the script yet, but I knew roughly where it was going. This is film school 101 is red. When red's on screen, it means danger, and it's that kind of, it's semiotics of the audience just seeing symbols and things, but subconsciously. So this was supposed to be a scary scene, so I just went and got all the red things I could in my flat, put a red towel on the radiator and red hoodie on the coat stand and that. And I had this red Hawaiian shirt that I put on the radiator as well, facing the camera. And then it turned out, I hadn't really planned for this, but a character that I brought in later always wore Hawaiian shirts just as a way to make him this weirdo. And because he was using my shirts, he ended up wearing the same red shirt. And I hadn't I kind of forgot that I'd used it earlier in the film. But then when I realised this, actually fed into the plot, I could turn it into a twist of because it spoilers for this film, but it turns out it seems like they might have been in cahoots earlier on, and a character notices this and is looking for clues, and then one of those clues is this shirt is on his radiator before they've allegedly met.
See, you shouldn't admit this. You should claim this was all a clever fucking plot device.
But then I don't pertain to I like owning my mistakes, and I want kind of people to follow suit, like you're saying, allow mistakes to happen, because sometimes that's where the best stuff happens.
I thought you were going to say something completely different. I thought you were going to say that because you were doing it over that time, that you were going back and being I could have done that differently or whatever, and then redoing it. Was that the case, or was it just plow ahead, fuck it?
I'm really lazy. Really lazy. Well, I mean, as lazy as any filmmaker could be anyway, there's early scenes that I shot, I was like, that could have been better, and maybe they don't quite fit with like the later stuff that I filmed, but so it works.
I guess the other interesting thing with that I've thought about a fair bit is the idea of like, you know, this idea of people, you know, putting out perfect things, and like, especially now, I guess the desire is to like, you know, if you're in a band, you don't want to put out like your shitty demos or whatever. You want to put out like the finished thing, and you want it to be like great. Or like if you're, you know, I don't know, doing videos, you want them to be good from day one or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Whereas I read a book actually, which our mutual friend Pazikis recommended, which was Show Your Work, and it talks about how actually, you know, people are interested in the process, and like, you know, you should share things, and even if they're imperfect, it doesn't matter, because people aren't going to like go back and, you know, judge you on your previous stuff. But I still struggle with that a bit, because I think that when you go to get jobs, then people still do look at all your older stuff, and they might, you know, if they Google your name, they'll find the first film or whatever. And I don't know what you make of that kind of, like, I don't know if there is any other way for like a band, for example, to like, you know, you kind of have to release things. You can't come out of you rarely come out of the cocoon fully formed. And like in Glasgow, you see all the time that these bands come around and they're so afraid of that kind of, you know, the imperfect history thing, that they'll split up a band because it's like, oh, we're fucked, we've ruined our chance now. So they'll start a new band that has no history, but they've already got all the experience from their other bands. And you can't really do that if you're like an individual, you know.
Well, in a weird way, that's something that actually really irks me. It happens a lot in film, that you get this myth of the first time filmmaker. They've just appeared from nowhere. That is it, and like, but it's a marketing thing, and it happens all the time, and it really angers me.
Well, who's that fucking Tarantino?
Yeah, he made a film before Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah, and the whole myth is like he'll only make 7 films or whatever. Pish. Like,
I don't like that. It feels so disingenuous. I mean, I'm a Tarantino fan, but like that irks me. But there's other examples of like, I think it was Taylor Sheridan, I can't mind, but he brought out his directorial debut, but it wasn't, and he had a film that he'd made previously that was a kind of schlocky horror film that didn't do too well, and they just like buried it. So when his next film came out, and he'd been writing in Hollywood for years as well, so it's not like he's some like guy that's came out of the basement and fully formed, like you said, out of the cocoon, just like as a like good director. I think I just hate that like notion that he made a film. Like, imagine being an actor, and and
then it's
and this guy is like essentially erasing your work, like saying that never happened. And there's so many examples of that happening.
So how do you contend with it as like someone, you know, an independent? Because now you have to, unless you're backed by big money, you have to share things in order to like people find you and like do things, unless you're gonna, you know.
I'd say like, fortunately, the gatekeepers that I mentioned earlier, they like when there's work behind you if it's good. I spoke to an agent, like a Hollywood agent, who was kind of talking about my work, and he was like looking to kind of get some clout behind my next script, but these things take forever. And I was like, I've been thinking about making a no budget film in the meantime, because I know these things take years. And he was like, yeah, that's totally fine, but if it's shit, we need to bury it. And I laughed, and he was like no. Like, because they want to present this method, and even some people I'm working with on my next feature just now, like actual industry people, they've kind of let slip, and they say like, oh, because this is your first film, And then they're like, oh, but I'm sorry, not your first film, you know what I mean, like, and it's
First real film.
exactly, and I was thinking, like, anything I've done up until it doesn't really count as, like, almost like it doesn't count with my brand or whatever, like, because no one has commissioned those films. They just, like, I forced them into existence. The
like
first
that idea.
commissioned film will be my first film, and it's happened every single time I've made a film. Any reviews that come out call it my first, my debut, and it's like, and this is like critics as well. It's like, you could just
Aye.
like go on my IMDb,
Yeah.
like just Google my name,
Yeah.
and you'll see there's not my debut. Like
Graham Hughes.
Thank you.
GRAHAM.
Yeah, the H, not the E.
Yeah.
But it's like, why would you assume that, like, and people just, it's like, oh, I've never heard of this person, it must be a debut.
Well, it's kind of like with churches, the Scottish electro, whatever genre I guess they are, they came out, and the music press did a similar thing with Lauren Maybury, first band and all that. But she's been kicking about the music scene for years.
Yeah.
And also, the other people in the band were in Aerogram, which was a major like underground. They had success.
So churches were a supergroup, really.
Yeah, they were like a Scottish supergroup, but it was made out to be like this brand new thing. And I mean, you could see that from their first song was like Lies or something, and it was incredible.
Yeah.
But they were like selling out the ABC and things in Glasgow, and that's because it was the same kind of industry myth of like.
But I think myth is the right word. People love the myth of like the artist that springs from nowhere, because it's aspirational in a way that means you don't have to put in any work. Like if you've ever been considering art and you see like their first film is like this, like that could be my first film, and I don't have to do any of the work.
Yeah.
I can just like spring into being as a
that's
fully formed
interesting,
artist.
because I find it more discouraging than like encouraging, because I'm like,
But
you're playing and you're like, I can't write songs like these people.
But that's because you have been working at your various art forms for...
And they're still shit.
But like for decades. Literally decades now. Stephen.
Where's my success?
But like... so you know what it's like. I'm talking about people that have like... maybe they've never considered like doing any art, or maybe have considered it but haven't actually done any, and that's what's aspirational, is that they see people that are instantly great and think, oh, that could be me, because I'm at 0, they were at 0 and they went to 1,
and then they write a song and they're like, oh no,
I'm
shit.
Oh man, I don't know how you do songwriting, man. That is like the hardest fucking art form.
I still cannot do it.
I disagree. But.
Well, so the other thing that was interesting was the finance stuff, because I think that that's the other thing about making things, that it does take money.
Yeah.
And I've got a weird, like, when I was doing photography as a job, like I needed the money to buy food.
Yeah.
Like that was my job. And I was much more like hardcore about saying to people, like, no, I need paid, and I need paid properly. But now, because it's not my job, then I feel really weird about taking money for artistic things. But I think that's like such a strange concept, because it costs a fuckload of money to make things.
Yeah.
And I guess it can feel like maybe it's a self-indulgent thing. You don't want to ask people to like pay money for something that you're doing because you want to.
Yeah.
But I guess especially in the case of a film, like even not including the time, the cost of everything else would be. Yeah,
the filming money is such like a horrible, like, maybe not the most like linked with money. I feel it is one of the most like intrinsically money centered art forms there are, particularly because like it takes a church. Like that's another thing that annoys me, is when you see like a film buy. You made that, did you? Like you were every actor. You must have done an amazing makeup job on yourself because those people all look different.
Yeah.
Yeah, film by great. It's
Mike
so,
Myers. Yeah, kind of.
yeah, exactly. And like it's even like Death of a Vlogger, which was very one man band. Like, still had a bunch of amazing actors. I already said I can't do music. Like, I had this great musician give us like so much music for so little money. And I think that's always the struggle with no budget film is you worry that you're taking advantage of people.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky that the people that I work with genuinely do seem to take joy out of making the films with me. But it's still like it's a contentious point, and it weighs on your mind a bit, the guilt of hoping that you're not taking advantage of people.
Yeah. I guess the whole art and money thing's always interesting because, I mean, even with the music industry, like, you know, the record labels had said, well, you know, if no one's paying for music anymore, music's going to die. Nobody will make music. And actually more music's been made than ever because music isn't about money. But at some point there is a question of the only way I can dedicate, like, I mean, where you can't see here where we're sitting, but it's like, you know, we're in our band rehearsal studio, which costs 500 quid a month. It's full of gear that we've had to beg, borrow, steal. And in total, I dread to think, like,
the amount of money that's in this room.
Aye, and yeah,
not even
not this room.
not this. No, the
We're not
amount of
giving you
money
the
that sometimes comes into this room only when there's people in many guards.
We do have security cameras and dogs and keypad entry. But in terms of, like, you know, there was an old thing of, like, somebody talked about, like, the value of, like, their jeans, and they're like, well, you know, if I wear these jeans 30 times and they're £30,
right,
then it's worth it. And then I'm like, well, that guitar was like, even if we go for a cheap ass guitar, right, 100 odd quid.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute, that's like, do I need to use it 100 times? Do I need to write 100 songs? And even then you're like, 100 times? Holy shit. And then when you amass everything else, like, you know, fucking cables, and it quickly becomes this huge, you know, expense. And I had a conversation with somebody recently who was an older guy in the Glasgow music world, and he was saying, you know, young bands, you shouldn't be playing for free because, you know, you should, you know, expect to get paid. If you're good enough to play, you're good enough to get paid and all that. But it goes back to what we were saying about, like, well, sometimes they're not good enough. And they might be good enough for their time to get paid for, but at the same time, venues have been shafted. There's no audience a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So it's like there's nobody paying the money. So how can people within the arts get paid if nobody's paying the money for the art?
Yeah.
And
it's not a meritocracy either.
Aye, exactly.
Like, I've seen shit artists succeed and great artists flounder.
Like me.
You're floundering away.
I flounder.
But it's not a meritocracy. Like, I think there's like a minimum bar of requirement, like, where if you're over this bar, you're good enough to succeed. Yeah. And then I think maybe there's like a genius bar where meritocracy does apply if you're like that good.
Yeah.
But everyone in this kind of middle ground, it's other factors that will determine your success, like how good your art network and who sees you at what time, like basically the hustle, like is the hustle then, and like who you know.
We had a really funny interaction. We're booking a tour for band Closet Organ in May 2022. 2022, is that right?
Yeah, that's where we are now. Yeah.
May 2022, dates below. But we're booking this tour, and we contacted, like, we're in a van, right? That, I mean, the van will cost fucking like $1,000 to hire for the duration of this tour, and it's not going to be a good van, by the way. It's going to be a shit van. Yeah. So that's $1,000 we've spunked up the wall already on this, you know, van, and then, you know, not even thinking about petrol or accommodation or any of that stuff. And we just want to play, right? We're like, after 2 years of pandemic, let's just go wherever, do whatever. In fact, in our email, we were like, we'll play literally in your car park. We don't give a shit anymore. But we got one response from somewhere, and it's been good. You know, lots of venues and DIY people have been like, you know, we'll pay you like whatever, which is obviously what we deserve, but unexpected. But then you get like, we got this response that was like, I see you've only got. It was a wee venue in a shithole town, by the way. It wasn't like some big London Palladium or some shit. And they were like, I can see in your Facebook you've only got 700 likes, which isn't that much in the context of the UK's population. And so I suggest you spend more time on your social media so you can improve that. And I was like, wait, what the First of all, your shitty venue has got 1,200 likes. And in the context of your town, I think you're doing much worse because you should be further up there. Second of all, when did, you know, the creation of music be directly tied to your ability to use Facebook?
Yeah.
And then fucking, like, I just couldn't, like, yeah, the whole thing used to be that you would, you know, bands would, you know, they have to work hard, get in a van and drive about. But now you can't even do that because you need to already have 1,500 fucking Facebook fans, so you get like 1% of the UK's population.
And it's also like, I mean, you're grunge.
I know, it's not exactly
like,
some.
I don't know how many grunge fans are actively using Facebook these days. It doesn't seem very cool, to be honest. Like, it's like, oh great, you're a grunge band that has 20,000 Facebook likes. Like, yeah, they're all fucking boomers, and
they're all my
like,
they're all my friends' parents.
Yeah, exactly.
The page,
and yeah, post things like, oh, you guys, I'm really proud of you guys doing a tour. It's so nice. I'll need to tell Auntie Sheila.
I know,
coming down to Scarborough.
I know. It's like that. Now, what I'm going to do, this is so bad that I'm going to change my drink, and I'm also going to check that camera is actually recording.
Go for it. Also, since you're going to the fridge.
Yeah, cool.
Thanks, man.
And I'm not going to edit this out, because this is just going to show you how lazy I am. We're recording.
Yeah. The lights are on the other two.
I know, I need to turn that light back on. Oh, fuck.
But yeah, the money. Thanks, man. Filming money is getting so much better though. Things are so much more accessible than even like. I mind when you said about the. Yeah, like if you play the guitar 100 times and it's £1 per time you play.
Yeah.
I had the same thing with.
Do you want the album?
Oh, this is. I've got an album
album
as well, but not my first camera. My first camera was a wee Handycam, a wee mini DV thing. It was great.
The tape.
Yeah, no, but like it was tape, but also my second camera, the one that shot the big slick on, which was my first feature that Stephen has a scene in. Just checking the mic.
Just checking the mic because I moved it.
I'll be.
Hello. Yes.
Yeah.
This is a professional outfit.
That was shot on a Canon XHA1. It was a mini DV camera as well, but it cost $2,500 at the time.
Yeah.
And I used that for all sorts of corporate stuff when I was trying to get a job after uni. And
You did. I forgot
was that stuff. Yeah. Oh, in Chinnan.
Yeah.
A more.
Yeah. Let's
that
never
what
speak
it's
of them again. Yeah.
A more group.
Yeah.
I forgot you worked there. Yeah. Fucking hell. But see, when I think about that, I'm like, did I make the cost of the camera back in the freelance that I did? I don't think I did. Nah. I mean, the existence of that feature film, The Big Slick, is worth $2,500. Maybe. But it's still like film is just such an expensive art form, but it's getting cheaper and cheaper, especially like experimental things like Screen Life. Right? Like, have you heard of Screen Life?
No.
So you might have seen some of the films, but it's like Unfriended, which was basically Screen Life is the film takes place on a screen. So generally like a laptop screen because you got like the right size, but there's a lot of like phone Screen Life things on TikTok and that. But yeah, like Unfriended was one of the first ones, and the whole film you're just looking at this person's laptop screen. But it's like they talk through Skype, there's like group calls, and then there's like you see them texting, and then like they do clever things like, you know, they'll bring up Spotify so you have like a score to it as well. But that sort of thing, like technically you only need a laptop to do. Like there's been newer versions like Unfriended. I'm a fan of, but it has a spotty reputation because it's a bit schlocky. But there was a film called Searching, which was a Screenlife film, and it was genuinely like I think a masterpiece. Like it's fucking brilliant. And then Host as well was a horror film that came out in the pandemic. It was like Zoom based. It was just a one Zoom call, and it was just ingenious and terrifying. But those kind of things, like they did have budget, but realistically, if you've got enough imagination and like if you're smart enough and you can get good actors, this is the thing people always forget. Actors,
it do matter.
well, not that they do matter, but they're a budget thing as well. You know, people are like, so no budget film. All right, some of the makeup wasn't bad, but the actors were rubbish. It's like that's a budget thing as well because actors cost money. But like if you can salvage these sorts of things, then you can make like good film art for next to nothing. If you've got like obviously there's the outlay of you need a laptop, or you know if you're shooting on your phone you need the phone, but it's always going to cost money. But the actual entry point is getting so much lower, much more accessible. There's free editing apps that you can get.
Yeah, it's kind of, I guess it's the same thing with everything, you know, photography, music, you know, you can have a laptop that can do, you know, I mean, the hilarious thing is you're saying like, when you did that 12 Angry Men thing, it was like, it was on DV tape, which is like, that's not that long ago that happened.
It was about 10 years ago.
Right,
so not long, not long ago at all.
And even like, in terms of this stuff, like when I started doing videos on YouTube, just shitty gear videos, like it was the gear you needed to do video, even at like, you know, 480p or 720p was like very, very expensive. Autofocus was shit. You know, like I was a photographer and it was like completely outside my wheelhouse. And that's why I stopped doing it for so long, because it was such a pain in the arse. And now, like, that camera there is like fucking 600 quid. You can get a lens for a few £100 that's autofocus is better than, you know, fucking, it's unbelievable. And the quality is so much better. And it's an interesting...
That camera...
Blackmagic.
It's half the price of my HDV camera. And that's like... That was 10 years ago, and not even adjusting for inflation. Like literally, like that camera cost $2,500. That one cost $1,100.
And even the process of like storage and everything, like you know, because
tapes you could reuse them.
But degrade.
They degrade.
And also though the process of digitizing it was a nightmare, because I mean I do analog video stuff now, and it's easier, but it's still a pain in the arse, because you have to get the capture cards, and there's better capture cards now, but in the past it was like these things you would get from China that had like the wee tiny CDs, the mini CDs with the drivers.
Everything has got so much better and so much easier. The world is like totally opened up, and the best part is that audiences are used to watching all sorts of stuff. So like
that's why I'm successful now.
But I don't even mean like
way lower.
I don't even mean content. I mean format. Yeah, exactly. Which is why, like, you know, you have these films, the Screenlife films. Like people watch a film that is a laptop screen, or they'll watch something shot on an iPhone, or like in it. Like it really comes down to, it's more about execution than it is about
and the good idea. And I think that's what, like, when you were saying about the ideas, I think that's really interesting, because I think that, you know, including in music, like people have lots of gear options, or like they do things on their laptop, but their music's still pish. It's like they maybe, you know, paralysed by choice or whatever, but or they feel like it's pish, and I think it's because, you know, you forget that idea is all kind of important to the...
I guess like and skill as well. You might know them. I don't remember the name, but Jo, my better half, she listens to a band that only use like children's instruments.
Oh, SAP.
Yeah.
They did the Grey's Anatomy theme tune.
Right. And it's like, yeah, you can go to a toy shop and buy like a £5 xylophone and like
Yeah.
a wee accordion, and like it's not the kit, it's the execution.
And this will sound hilarious on this channel because I literally
There's so much kit, like there's kit everywhere.
I'm trying to make up for lack of ability by jumping from.
You're so downing yourself now.
Is my brand.
Okay,
Yeah,
right.
that's
Well, if
fine.
it's your brand, that's fine.
Yeah.
But we'll have a chat in the pub after.
When I
this
talk
and
to advertisers,
buoy
I
you
tell
up.
them I'm the best channel on YouTube.
Yeah, which you are.
I mean, it is.
It is. It's not a lie.
I spoke to a company 2 days ago who will remain nameless, and they were talking. They're like,
Is it
well,
Wix?
they said, oh, we only, usually only deal with, channels with X amount of viewers or whatever. And I was like, yeah, but they're shit,
Yeah.
and I'm amazing.
Nice.
Was
it Raycons?
No. Far higher brow than that. I wouldn't tell you. I can't tell you.
Yeah.
I'll blow my NDA. I've not signed. The other thing I wanted to ask was about the church, not the church, but you said it. Thank fuck.
It takes a church. Yeah.
It takes a church, and what I always found interesting.
I should have
was
said it takes a village.
a village. Yeah, fuck the church.
Yeah.
I shouldn't offend my American viewers, but
See you later.
feel free to sample that. Aye, the village church, the church village. It takes lots of people to do things,
Uh-huh.
and I think when, as I mentioned, we went to school together, and the first few films were. That's what I liked, or not what I liked, but it was something that I thought was really interesting. Was that lots of people who weren't necessarily wouldn't have considered themselves to be creative people were involved in like acting or fucking like making things, and you saw everybody come out and do their like skill or like something they were good at. Maybe that was just they had a house that was free or something. And I'm curious how you see that. Does that progress as like how has that changed doing it now versus when we're all fucking in high school and like.
So it's still like. So taking, I think I've got maybe a bit more insular since those days, and maybe a bit more precious, and maybe that is like a. Yeah, but yeah, maybe that is just more like a artistic evolution kind of thing. And like you were saying, like the earlier stuff you make, there's a lot of joy in that. And I look back on those. I rewatched The Big Slick recently. So for context, The Big Slick was my first feature. Wrote it with two of our mutual friends, Keith Grantham and Graham McGay. And the three of us just sort of willed that into being over a summer. As you said, shooting in like our parents' houses, and everyone sort of came together in our friend group just to sort of add something, and that was like a beautiful time. And the film, for its means, the film like punched well above its weight. I think everyone just really did a great job, but. It's still like a no-budget film made by 21-year-olds. And
Is that how old you are?
yeah,
Fuck.
it was 2011.
Oh.
Wait, so I mean 23.
Don't think about it.
22,
Don't
23.
age us. Don't age us.
I know.
We bleep that out. I am still 21.
But where was I going with this? Basically, now I don't make a whole lot now. Since my last feature, I've made like 2 shorts. I want to do more music videos. So anyone that wants a music video,
Hire me first.
get in touch.
That fridge is just turned on, just so you know.
That's the buzz. It's
not me.
It's not my anxiety.
Yeah.
It's like become audible. But the most recent stuff I've made, it's been just like myself and Joma in our flat, just keeping it minimal and just to try and keep my hand in. Say match fit is like the sports people say.
It's harder to make things when you're old.
Yeah, people don't have the same amount of free time
Yeah.
either. Like, it's hard enough meeting folk at the pub,
Aye.
let alone organising something for shoot.
Yeah.
So then, what I would say then is, so Death of a Vlogger, which was like my last big project. That the village then, where it was almost like a kind of there was a filter that went through to the people that instead of just like the people that when we did it at first, it was a hobby, and now people are turning their hand to it for a career. So, for example, David McKeach. Soundman, yeah. Also went to our high school.
He'll be furious at my mic placement.
yeah. Sorry, Peachy, if you're watching this.
I'm not paying you to do it though.
But I was able. So I was a wee bit of the budget. Was able to kind of put Peachy's way for sound, but it still felt like pals making films, even though like I wanted to be able to pay him what I could because that's his career. He is a professional soundman now, but if you go on his IMDb, like he is the Glasgow independent film hero. Like he's got like 70 credits on his IMDb. He just works all the time, and like absolutely brilliant guy. But that's the kind of where the village has come, and like Annabelle Logan, yeah, who was in our second feature, and we've just stayed in touch because we had a great time working on it. And it was like she's an actor, and a really brilliant actor, and just like one of the nicest people ever. And as we record, she's like 9 months pregnant, so could be popping anytime soon.
Get the text through now.
I know, exactly.
I want the exclusive.
Yeah, but when I was making another film, I got in touch being like, look, I'm going to do another no budget, don't have any money, but like, do you fancy it? And she's always been so game. I think it helps that we have a good time. Like, I think that's the least you can provide if if you're not able to pay anything, like at least it should be a nice environment and like a chance for her to show off and enjoy being on set and not just like feel like you're turning up to a job without getting paid. But that's where the village has come. Like all those sorts of things is like it's gone through a filter, and it's the people that are like still doing it professionally but have a bit of spare time to be very kind and
that's not to be circuitous, if that is a word, but that is the kind of the interesting thing with the music side, is where it's not black and white or binary. It's not a case of like, okay, you're professional now, you have to accept this or that's it. When it comes to creative endeavours, then there's it's diffuse.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing as well. Like Peachy's a good example, David McKeach. Peachy, that he's a professional, but his money comes from like ads, and corporates, and not necessarily the most enjoyable things. So the chance to kind of maybe earn a bit less but hang out with friends and do something that's a bit weirder and more interesting, he's always seemed kind of keen for that. I think that's kind of that seems to be a thread. Like the Scottish film industry doesn't really exist, so if the professionals that work in that capacity have a chance to work on something that's a bit more creative, as I say creative, ads are creative, corporates are creative, but I mean like not soul sucking. Especially like hanging out with your pals.
Any kind of like when I was attempting to be a professional photographer and that was the bulk of my income, that was for a lot of reasons I stopped doing it because it was so bad. Like chasing people for money, the whole process of like dealing with companies or like dealing with people who were unhappy all the time or like all that stuff. Even though the work itself might have been like a creative expression in some way, the process was a pain in the arse. So like it is different when you're doing stuff with your pals and like or people that it's something you're interested in, on a different level to like well, so I don't know how long this has been, and I should have timed this because I am a professional, but I guess Oh no, it'll tell us on the Zoom.
It's been roughly 50 minutes, I think.
What's it say? 54? This is 54 then.
54, yeah.
Let's see. Right, 54.
That's what I said, roughly 50
That's
minutes.
pretty good. That's great. Let's see that internal clock. Yeah. So I guess the kind of main other thing I wanted to ask you about was not even ask you about, it was to say about, are you working on something now, and if there's not anything you can talk about like that, what should people go watch? Like, what do you want to plug?
All right. No, I don't want to plug anything apart from Death of a Vlogger. It's on Amazon.
Yeah. But you went to did you go to California for that? Some film festival?
Yeah, that was
it did okay. I don't want to undersell this because it was in big kind of horror festivals and Fright Fest.
CineQuest is an Oscar qualifying festival. That doesn't sound that isn't impressive as it sounds.
Yeah.
So
you're an Oscar winner? No.
I'm an Oscar qualifying festival attendee. Yeah, that was a disaster. That was March 2020, which if you cast your mind back, something happened that month.
I don't want to cast my mind back.
Yeah, so we played it, Fright Fest, we played it first, which is like one of the top 5 genre festivals in the world, and that was our world premiere, and that was amazing. And then our next one after that, I think, was
you shot this on an iPhone as well? Did you tell me that earlier?
Yeah, it was shot on an iPhone. So there you go, it was 90% shot on an iPhone and 10% shot on a Canon C100, C300.
I've not.
One of them. Because it was like a mockumentary, so I didn't want to the iPhone made sense for the vlogger parts, but for the documentary parts, it was like, nah, you don't. I mean, I'm sure there are documentaries shot on an iPhone, but I wanted to make a distinction between the two sides of it. But yeah, mostly shot on an iPhone. So that's what I was saying earlier on, is everything is so much more accessible now, and there's plenty of films that are shot on iPhones that have made money and started people's careers.
The funny thing about Death of a Vlogger was that because you had shot it yourself, and I don't know that genre at all. It's not my area. And I loved the previous film, the Spectacular Suicide film, which I guess you won't talk about.
Why do you think I wouldn't talk about it? I'm intrigued. What's the contentious part of that? Because I know there's several.
I guess suicide's a difficult topic.
Yeah, that is.
And we've had friends who have committed suicide.
Yeah.
And so I guess for me, that, the point of that was that for me, the Death of a Vlogger wasn't my natural genre, and so I had no concept of what
it might contain or what.
Yeah,
how it might be structured.
Yeah, and so going to the QMU, where it was part of that festival. QMU is a big independent cinema in Scotland, well respected and everything. And seeing it in there and seeing it the audience packed and everything was amazing.
Do you mean the GFT?
Sorry, yes, not the QMU, GFT.
How did we
Sorry,
call it QMU?
The
GFT.
The GFT, Glasgow Film Theatre. And QMU is something else entirely. But seeing it packed full of people and them genuinely loving it, and then the reception it got from the Fright Fest people, and then different places was real cool as fuck.
I mean that was insane because Fright Fest, they do two. Their main one is London's, which we played the previous August, and then they do a Glasgow one, which was then the February. It was the night before we went to California.
Oh fuck.
Yeah. But yeah, playing in Glasgow, that was beautiful because just again to have the homecoming and show it on home turf.
Aye.
But the other thing was it was opening night of the festival, and we played second after Synchronic, which is directed by a duo. Whose names I've completely forgotten. But
we'll just overdub this. Where it's
these names are.
Yes, yeah.
I love their films. They've made 3 films previous: Resolution, Spring, and The Endless, and they're just really, really fucking brilliant films that like I admire these guys so much, and I see a lot of myself in them, like very arrogantly, but they're quite self-made, and like they star in their films as well, and like it feels like homemade yet like bigger, and they're making strides in the film that like played before ours like had Anthony Mackie and like in the lead, and it's like you got this Anthony Mackie MCU star led film, and then this thing I shot on my iPhone like right after, and I was just like, oh, man, I feel like it was really lovely. So yeah, the film did brilliant, and then the next day we flew out to California.
And everything burned.
Yeah, pretty much. Like
So you're to blame, really.
Yeah,
If we
it
go
was my
by
fault.
causation.
Literally, like we flew out to San Jose, and I had intended, it was like a mental 24 hours of like, I filmed a live podcast, then went to the screening of the film, did the Q&A, got like 5 hours sleep, then we went to the airport, flew to California, and I'd planned to then, we were arriving like about 4 hours before Death of a Vlogger played in California, and I had planned on like going to the screening to do a Q&A, but when we arrived I was like, no.
Yeah.
Fortunately, like there was 4 screenings,
Yeah.
and that was only the first, so I was like, there's 3 more, like I'm here for the week, right, we'll go to the next one. Woke up the next morning, a friend of mine had a short film playing, and he texted me, like me and Joma had got up, because Joma was in the film as well, went across the road and got some breakfast burritos, as you do in California, and had this text from my friend Chris. He's like, you hear the festival's been cancelled?
Oh,
it's like, what?
and you've flown from fucking...
Flown across the world. He's like, yeah, festival's been cancelled, COVID and all that. So March 2020 was the start of it all, and it was like everything got shut down.
Oh, yeah.
So me and Joma were adrift in San Jose for like 5 days, and then we'd booked in San Francisco after that. So we were just like, oh well, it's a holiday.
Well, I know America took it all very seriously, so I'm sure it was, you know...
Well, certainly CineQuest Film Festival did. So.
I mean, they must have at that point, because I guess, though, that was right. Yeah, because I remember the screening, and then you were leaving literally the day of.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's a good... it couldn't get much worse, I guess.
No. But I mean, well, actually, props to Creative Scotland. They paid for a lot of that trip, so it
Creative
was...
Scotland.
You're like
I want
looking at the lens to do a Creative Scotland like
give me
show.
money.
Yeah. But yeah, that took the sting out of it. That as you were saying earlier, it all comes back to money, and it's like in order to sell your film, you need to like travel across the world.
I know.
and
Have
pay
to
for
go to
it.
California.
Well,
Yeah.
having to pay to do that.
Yeah, and
But
then-
like, fortunately, they paid like half of it, so it didn't feel quite as like horrible turning up and being told that your film's not going to screen any more times, and that the one screening that you could have gone to, there's probably wasn't even. I never even asked them like what the audience numbers were, because I was too terrified that they'd be like 3.
That's fine. Think of the GFT or the QMU as...
Exactly.
like
The
this
QMU
and,
was like packed.
Yeah,
It
packed
was,
full of people. Well, I need to piss so badly because that dragon soup has gone through me, or this beverage. I don't give a fuck. Dragon soup, and so the only thing left is I'll put links to your shit, not your shit, but your your videos,
my junk,
below.
my stuff.
But Death of a Vlogger, people should watch that.
Yeah, it's on Amazon, Sky Store, iTunes, and also other illicit places.
Illicit places.
If you're
Pornhub.
not cracked Pornhub yet, but 123 movies. I think you can probably find it on there.
I'm going to upload it to Pornhub tonight. I don't know if will I get demonetized for that? I don't think I will. I think if I say I'll get demonetized, so I'll have to bleep that. But I'll forget to do it now, and I'll get fucking pulled off.
Well, I'm not going to pull you off, so I know I've
not on the
guessed on here,
camera,
but
not on the camera.
the casting couch.
Yeah, the funny thing is that you obviously can't see this, but that it does very much look like a casting couch in here. And if you don't know what that is, then you can go Google it, and that's probably a good time to end this video. Thanks for talking to me, and now we'll find out what various technical failures have happened.
No, thanks for that. This has been lovely.
That's definitely recording. Your camera is definitely recording because it's a proper camera.
Good old black magic. Doing your stuff.
These 500 microphones won't have recorded anything because, yeah. But anyway, hi, thanks.
Cheers, man.
Goodbye. Cheers. I really need to piss.
Yeah, go.
Like, so I'm going to piss myself. But
That went pretty
I'm
well, I
also
think.
terrified.
What?